let's go back to the beginning. So first, Julia, can you tell us a little bit about um, the inception of Pat and getting that character on the show?
Well, it was inspired by I was an accountant before I was an actress at Columbia Pictures, and there was someone I worked with who had a lot of Pat's mannerisms, mostly the drooling and standing too close things. And it was a he, and I just thought that was funny. And later I thought maybe I shouldn't have thought that was funny, but anyway, to me that was funny. It was just like, okay. And then I also worked with as an accountant, I worked with a lot of characters, and so I there was also another person, and I just kind of combined them into this character as a one-off at the Groundlings in the Late Show. Just I was at first thinking it might be a guy, but I didn't know if I could pull it off, so I just threw in a joke that you didn't know if it was a man or woman, really to kind of make up for my lack of acting ability. Anyway, and then that got the biggest laugh. And then it was like, oh, okay. So anyway, so that's how that happened. When I auditioned for SNL, Pat was one of the characters, but it wasn't even what I thought was my best characters, but it was one of the characters I auditioned with. And then I got on the show and it became a big thing. And then it kind of Pat evolved with me, with the show. I kept having, it really was a very limited premise to begin with. And then it became a slightly more complicated premise over time. So that's how that, and one of the fun things in the documentary is that because the movie was such a huge bomb and because my life took a huge turn right after that, I just didn't think about Pat until Ro made me think about it.
Sorry.
Ro
Sorry.
made me think about Pat. So for me to see how big of a deal Pat was when Pat was in Pat's heyday, is really fun because I tend to deny when things like that are happening. Like, and it's also hard to know when you're the person that it's happening to what's happening. So I didn't realize how big of a deal Pat was, even though now I'm like, oh no, that was a big deal.
Ro, it's so interesting in the film how there are people who just have different reactions to
Yeah.
Pat and
Yeah.
this mixed legacy of the character since then. How they are a non-binary icon or trans icon or whichever is claimed by so many groups. But then there's also people who are just downright offended by the jokes of the character, and intentionally or not, camp or not, this character becomes a part of the non-binary history in pop culture. So you talk about it in the movie, but can you give a little bit of your relationship with Pat and how it led to you wanting to make this movie?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because it strikes me as Julia's talking about Pat, that Pat has this way of like this zombie like way of popping back up. You know what I mean? I feel like Pat is their own creature that is separate from Julia, that's separate from me, that just is. I don't know. I really, it's like Pat to me kind of really is a person because they really do just come back around like pretty regularly, I think. So, I mean, essentially for me, it was like, um, it's something that I don't really say in the movie. So you heard it here first, kind of. But it's the way that I came to Pat was not through the sketches on SNL. I came to Pat through the movie. It's Pat the movie. And I came to It's Pat through the movie because I was obsessed with the band Ween. So it's like it really started with Ween actually, and then Ween was the sort of gateway drug to Pat, which I think is really funny. So if Ween ever wants to talk to us about it, I would love that. But
I can actually probably make that happen.
yeah.
I might have a Dave Dreiwitz connection.
Oh my God, okay, amazing. Please do because I love Ween. That
Oh
was
my God. If you wanted me to be part of it, I love them too. I love weed so much. That would be the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put a pin in that.
Love,
We'll
love.
see what we can do.
Then the whole interview just talks, it like goes, and we're just talking
Right.
about the game. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I connected. I watched the movie with my friend because we both loved Ween, and then I just kind of Pat just stuck in my brain like this little thorn, and I just was me and my friend were just sort of obsessed with Pat and obsessed with the way that Pat always evaded, like very funnily and skillfully evaded all questions and kind of like in retrospect, Pat always had the power in a situation because like the attention was always centered on them and because they never gave in. You know what I mean? It's like they never revealed their gender and they also didn't really seem to be bothered, by other people except that, people were acting weird, but they didn't like take it to heart. So
There's
I
a
think
swagger.
yes, Pat has like unintentional swag, and which I think is really beautiful. And so I think, yeah, as a kid, I just thought it was really funny, and we would just like quote the movie, and we're really obsessed with the jokes, and then, like I say in the film, it was like I was actually at a Sundance dinner and it was like 20 years later and we were talking about 90s movies that should never be remade because perhaps they hadn't aged well, and I was just like, I want to remake It's Pat, and like it burst out of me, but it was actually true. Like I went back and I was like, oh my God, what Pat. And so my childhood friend who, like, it was at that time a TV writer. Like we went and rewatched It's Pat the movie, and I kind of was expecting like because by then I was already identifying as non-binary, which now I don't identify as non-binary. I'm just trans, but I I was expecting kind of like, oh, maybe this hasn't aged well, maybe I'll be offended or whatever. And I just thought it was so funny still. I was like, oh, I just love Pat still. I can't not love Pat. But I did have this like experience of being like, oh my God, this is not only do I love this, but I feel like this actually refers to me now and is like maybe laughing at me now. And also, I saw so many of the experiences that I was having, particularly at that time, like when I wasn't passing, that like I really felt like a Pat. I was like, oh, I am Pat. I really just am Pat, you know? And what a weird thing to like become this character that you were like obsessed with, you know? So,
Yeah, I okay, this isn't remotely the same, but it is what kind of came through my mind while I was watching the movie was I might not look at uh, passing, but I'm Latino.
mhm,
Um, and my favorite cartoon as a kid was Speedy Gonzalez.
mhm.
And then one day, you know, the news or whatever told me that that was racist and he wasn't allowed to be on TV anymore. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh well, who are they?
That
Now
is
I don't have
kind of
any
like it.
Latinos on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You just had like one thing.
So if your mind was in the play, if not to reduce anyone who is offended by the stuff in its pad, of course, but when you are someone who enjoys it and finds it funny and relates, um, especially for a non-binary character in the boys club of SNL during that era, it's like transgressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Julia, can you talk about maybe like the earliest rumblings that you knew that there was like a cult of Pat?
You mean
And
like when
forgive
I
me
was
for
on
calling you a
SNL or
cultist.
later?
I mean, whenever it happened.
Um,
Like, did you get fan
well,
mail
I
or
did
anything?
realize while I was on the show it was a big deal because people were dressing up as Pat all the time. Like I would come down from, 8H and 30 Rock and the elevators would open and there would be like 10 people dressed as Pat. And there were other popular characters. There was Wayne's World. There was a lot of really popular characters. But I could tell that Pat was also popular, And then I think there was uh Halloween when I went on the subway, not dressed as Pat, and in New York, and must have been like probably 92. And there every subway car I got on, I had to take the subway mini stops in different cars, had people dressed as Pat. And that was this moment of like, oh my God. And of course, I kept thinking of the original person slash people that I based it on, one of which was still a friend of mine and had no idea that they were Pat. Um, and, and I just thought, oh my God, this is crazy. This is really, yeah. And then, um, yeah, I did know a little bit about it. It's kind of funny. I did know while it was on the show when it got to be so popular, and then after the movie, I really just put it in a box and put it away. Like, and so then I just didn't think about it. And then I tend to really downplay um my accomplishments, or I don't know, is Pat an accomplishment? I don't know.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
but
I
anyway,
think
I think there's so much. I personally think that life is so much more happenstance and luck and random things happening to you than it is intentional, deciding I'm gonna take the comedy world by storm with my insightful character that no one's thought of. Like I didn't think that way. That's not how I think. And I think if you see the rest of my career, you will say, yes, we believe you. You don't think that way. I just don't think that way. Um, and so I kind of put it in a box. And then, really, with the documentary, it's been really profound for me. I mean, I'm so thankful to Ro for making it, even if I'm the only one who sees it. And that's not going to be true. But um,
that's already not true. So,
yes, that's already not true. No,
I've
but
seen
it's
it.
really, it's it's such an incredible thing to happen to a person, not only to create a character and have it become a pop culture thing, but also to forget about it for 30 years and kind of be mildly embarrassed about it, and then realize that you did do something really unique. And when I saw the movie again, so I hadn't seen the movie for 30 years since I saw it with you, Ro, at Dynasty Typewriter. And I realized I think it's actually a good movie. There's things in it that I wouldn't do now, for sure. But they actually aren't the androgynous things. They're the drooling, gross things. Um and otherwise though, I thought we really did a good job. Like, and that I would never have had. I'd probably go the rest of my life and never realize that that was actually a good effort, and that I'm proud of it. And so that's just a profound thing to happen to me. That's probably a bigger thing to happen to me than doing Pat in a way. Because I feel like this, oh, now I'm older. It's like, okay, I can be proud of this thing.
Um, Ro, the fantastic framing device you have in the film is the idea of assembling a writer's room of all non-binary and trans people to reclaim this character. Um, I mean, I love that, and the we get to see the results of it in the film, which is spectacular. Um, First, tell me a little bit about like the plan to be like, all right, I actually do want to do Pat again,
yeah.
and but I want to do it in a way that's entirely for and from my community.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I went into the film really loving hybrid documentary, so I think there's so much good hybrid doc right now, and whether it's, like anything from like Kirsten Johnson, like Dick Johnson, his dad, or Kitty Green, or Nathan Fielder, or, there's so many great examples of really cool hybrid documentary being made. And so I knew that I was interested in that, and I had sort of played with that in my previous work. So I knew that there were going to be like I wanted to dress people up as Pat in certain ways. I didn't and and I thought about maybe reenacting the sketches, but I didn't quite know how that was going to go. I was like, I knew that I was making this documentary that had a lot of archival, that was going to be funny, that was going to involve trans comics, but the writer's room idea really didn't come about until I was interviewing trans comics and they were all like, well, if I redid Pat, I would do this. And if I redid Pat, then I would do this. And then I saw a picture of the SNL writers' room and I was like, this only makes sense to hold a writers' room. And in a way that to me is like more, I mean, I think it ends up being more interesting than the sketches, because it's like it's about the process of getting a writers' room together and like being able to have people like shoot the shit and joke and laugh and like and analyze this phenomenon together in a way that was really organic. And also like I mean, I would like to know what goes on in an SNL writer's room. You know what I mean? So it was like obviously we weren't that, because we can't recreate that, but it also ended up being really powerful because a lot of the comics have been in writers' rooms, like just for TV shows, and they were like, we've never been in a writer's room where there's like even another trans person. So to have like one that's like all trans people was pretty amazing. And it was really funny. So I think that it ended up being like a really fun, like beautiful device that I think just like kind of was made sense in terms of the form.
Um, Kind of related to that, Julia, can you talk a little bit about the SNL writers' room? Did you bring, I mean, all I know about it is from what I've heard on David Spade and Dana Carvey's podcast. So did you like write the sketch and then show it to the gang, and you're like, "This is the sketch," or does it get kind of passed around the room and everyone sprinkles into it? What was the process like back in
Well,
those
there's
days?
a whole bunch of different ways it can happen, but for me, I had a writing partner there, Christine Zander, and we wrote all the initial draft of every Pat sketch we wrote together there. Um, and but then the room would take it over. So you kind of like the first sketch I did of Pat was just what I did at the Groundlings verbatim, exactly. And then Christine and I, who just happened to be my office mate, and we really got along, had a really similar sense of humor. We just started writing all kinds of sketches together. And then they had a day where you pitch your ideas. Like on Monday night, you pitch all your ideas to the host. You get an idea of what the host likes. You have ideas in your head of, because usually a couple of hosts in advance, like ideas you have that might work with one host or another. And, uh, and then we would pitch it, and then everyone would pitch in and help. There's a lot of polishing days with a group of really brilliant people, I have to say. I mean, I have my complaints about it, but they were also, I mean, it was very male point of view, I mean, just very, very, very much male point of view. But especially when I was there, and I think it's that way now again, but it had a little moment when it wasn't like that. But now it is again. But they also are brilliant people. They're really great comedians. Like they really added great stuff. And um yeah, and then Cheryl Hardwick, who was the band leader at the time, we wrote the Pat theme song together. So she really helped with that and had fun ideas for that. And so, yeah, everybody kind of pitches in at the end. Everyone pitches in on every sketch. Like you're expected, if you have an idea that you think might work for something, you're expected to go up and say, "What about this?" So you benefit from that.
So fascinating. Um, Ro, what at what point in your process, like was there the idea of a movie yet when you kind of cold emailed Julia to see if she wanted to be involved? And Julia, what was your immediate reaction? Were you like, "Oh, who wants to talk about Pat?" Or were you like, "Oh, cool, Pat"?
Well, I didn't see your email as you see in the documentary for a year.
Right.
Um, because right now I'm looking at my computer and I have 75,000 unread emails. Um,
Aren't you popular?
no, not. It's I don't know how to organize and I avoid it. I realize I'm of a generation that doesn't know how to handle even email. Okay.
I
But
have that problem too, actually.
but yeah, I guess I got I mean, I don't, no one else said they were going to make a documentary about that. I just didn't see it. I mean, I just didn't see it. And then when I
What,
did see it, I thought, okay, sure.
So when
Zach,
you did, so Ro, when you did get like that message back like a year later, were
Mhm.
you like, oh, that took a long time, or like what was your excitement or versus apprehension of getting Julia actually involved?
Well, I think what actually happened, like actually, Julie, I think maybe we simplified it for the film, but I did email you. A year later, we did get a response, but it was, I think we went through your reps, I think is
Oh,
how it
oh,
ended up.
okay.
But we did get that response because all the letters
Okay. Oh,
are,
I'm glad to know that.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know how my agent often says, could you please respond to this from 6 months ago, Julia?
Yeah, but I think like I don't know, for me going in, I think it was I was like really really excited because I was like I'm gonna make the film no matter what, but it's gonna be way better if Julia's involved because I just also just from like a journalistic perspective, even though I'm not a super like there's some doc filmmakers who are very just journalistically trained in that way, and that's not me. As you know, as you can tell, I'm a bit more like whimsical and hybrid about it. But it was important to me from a journalistic perspective to have Julia's point of view. Like it's not. I feel like the story wouldn't be balanced. I feel like I wouldn't have so many details, and so I was excited, but I was also nervous because I didn't. I really, really, really am not like a gotcha kind of filmmaker, and I didn't want Julia to feel like I was there to be like, I'm gonna cancel you. And like I think now maybe we're a little bit more out of cancel culture, and now we're just into like, I guess no one's cancelable culture. But like at the time, it was more like it was a little more cancel culture times, and I think I didn't want her to feel like that was the approach that I was coming with. And in fact, I think the film really advocates for like, kind of, I mean, I would say accountability, but that just sounds even too like litigious or something. It's more just like, let's have a conversation about what you meant and like how things have changed and like let's look at it together. And I mean, I think it's like I've said this before, but I think it's like such a testament to Julia for like stepping up to the plate and being willing to talk about it because I think a lot of people would not have done that, you
I
know?
realized recently, Ro, I credit my Catholic upbringing because,
Oh,
like,
guilty?
I remember, no, not guilty, that feeling that you can't, you just have to, like, if you were going into a confessional, you can't say, well, I'm only going to go into the confessional if in advance you tell me that you're going to absolve me of my sins,
Right,
right? Like, you
right,
can't do
right.
that. You got to go in and lay it out there and see what they say, And like my husband, who is not in show business in any way, but who is protective, was like, well, should you be involved? Like, this could be terrible. And I just remember thinking, I mean, not terrible, a terrible documentary, but it could be bad for me. And I said, well, but I'm up for it. I don't, I'm interested in I'm actually really curious what people think about Pat. And I some things that people that don't things that people don't like about Pat, I disagree with. Some I agree with. And mostly it's just interesting. So I didn't feel that worried about it. Although before I saw it, because I didn't even see it, until not that long ago. And I didn't know how I was gonna come off. Like I thought this was gonna be like, Julia, why didn't she stay an accountant? Um but I was happy when I saw it, of course.
And Ro, did you have to preface anything like kind of say that this is not a witch hunt, or did that just kind of come across in your interactions that you weren't making
Yeah.
that kind of film?
I think I did say it, but it definitely took. I mean, again, like just a credit to Julia, like we filmed over years, so it's like we got to know each other as we were filming, and like
Yeah.
Julia, as you can tell, is very charming. So I like immediately we'd like, and you can see in the background, like Julia is a big fan of literature, and so am I, and so we would just like talk about books
And then
and
we never get around to talking about Pat.
literally. So it was just it felt kind of it pretty quickly didn't feel like hard in that way. It just felt like I don't know. I think It felt actually, I don't know, now that I'm saying it, maybe it felt, and I wonder if it feels this way to you, Julia, like we were uncovering something together. Like
Yeah,
it's like
I
you're
would say
digging
that's
something
true.
out of the sand and you're like, what? Let's like look at this treasure and figure it out and like what
I
was it?
feel a little embarrassed of myself in the movie, only not because of you, Ro, but because I wish I had been smarter about myself. Like I didn't, it took a long time. I always feel like I kind of get there emotionally, but it takes me a really long time to get there. And when I look back on it, I think, oh God, if I'd had these insights, I could have benefited from those insights. Not necessarily professionally, I don't mean that, but like just emotionally and mature wise, like that it did take a long time. Like that's the part, that's why I feel like I've seen it 4 times. I'm not going to see it again because now I'm just like the whole time I'm like, Julia, like I wish I was more insightful. I feel like I feel a little defensive and not as insightful as I like to think I am. But but overall, of course, I'm very happy. I mean, yeah, I'm so happy that it's made, and I'm so happy that people will remember this character. And through it, I've really become a more outspoken. I won't do my song and dance row about the differences between men and women in our culture that drive me crazy. But I really realize how much I am a true advocate for androgyny itself, not necessarily I'm non-binary, but just people not having to conform to stereotypes of gender in their behaviors. And that is really deep in me. Like I really could just start an organization, not convincing people to be non-binary or to be trans, whatever people want to be is fine with me. But just like don't try so hard to be so girly or so masculine. God,
No,
that's my
Julia's like
message. That's my
everyone's
big message.
non-binary now. Julia's like mandated non-binary identity for everybody.
Yeah. Everyone, bring it down
Yeah.
50%.
Everyone is
Please.
Pat. When we say we're Pat, we mean that everyone actually has to be Pat now. That's our
Exactly.
that's what we're
I
saying.
know, like if it Pat wouldn't
Our
be
shirts are
funny.
coming in the mail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we're all getting Western shirts. We're all getting khaki pants. That is the uniform.
My goal is to make Pat not funny. In that, yeah, there's a lot of Pats around. So what?
Yeah. But I think one thing I would love to say that that Julia, like you're saying like that you were embarrassed and that you had like a progression, but I think like that is what I think audiences relate to, what I've noticed. And because audiences, like we've had audiences that are from like very young, like, we have like Gen Z all the way up through like it's like older folks, younger folks, whatever. And I think a lot of people can relate to the learning curve that you go through. And that's what makes you like a really relatable character is your willingness to go on this like journey. And also, I think what's interesting is like because we filmed the film over 5 years or 4 years or whatever, like a lot of people, and you'll see in the documentary, like people transition, people look totally different than they do now. Like now, I'm like we put people's pronouns like when we're interviewing people in the lower thirds, and I'm like, why did we do that? Because they're probably all going to change anyway. It's like so it's kind of we all had like we all were, and that shows that like obviously change isn't unique to trans people, but we all went through a lot of changes during this process, and I think that was really beautiful, like to see
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
everybody grow and change while we were making the film.
Last question. It's great that well, first it's great that Julia gets to participate in this like nothing personal, but death of the author. Getting to see your creation out there all these years later and the impact that it has. Um, and the film does such a great job of articulating the myriad viewpoints towards and around Pat, where it's just like and like you said, without being the a cancel type of thing. So I guess can you talk about very briefly just now that the dust is beginning to settle and the movies out there in the world, um, just your kind of final word on Pat and the idea of an older piece of art like that in hindsight is like this like performance art, pop art like character that maybe it was not intended to be, but has become regardless. Um, just like I don't even know what my question is. Just like just any kind of final thoughts on Pat?
For Julia or me or both?
Yeah, both.
You go first, Ro.
Oh God. I don't know. I just think Pat is in. It's time for Pat. It really is. I don't know. Pat is like kind of evergreen in the sense of like there is something really lovable about that character, I think, because of the like how earnest Julia was in her portrayal and also Pat is just Pat's self. You know what I mean? Like it's like I think if anything, it's sort of like an encouragement to just be yourself. And like we said, Pat's swag and superpower is just sort of like being like everybody around me is fucking weird, but I'm great, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's something that's really wonderful to be taken away from it. And we didn't even in the film, we didn't even fully get into the plot of It's Pat the movie, which like I think I would love to like bring back and have it be like Rocky Horror Show type stuff where you're
Me
throwing
too.
nuts and bananas. Let's do it. Whoever wants to promote
I
that, hit
would
us up.
totally love that. That would be the dream because yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd say is something you said, Ro, reminded me that Lorne Michaels, who I don't have a lot of contact with, but he wrote me a really sweet note about Pat saying there was something always very sweet and and earnest and non-malicious about Pat. Pat wasn't, I think you can really tell when people play characters that they disdain, like they're making fun of the character. And I didn't feel that way, about Pat. I really loved Pat, even though Pat had a lot of flaws. Not the non-binary part of Pat, but other character qualities. And I am so glad that that comes through. Like the Pat character was really in good fun, and maybe some of it was tone deaf, but it was really just trying in a happy way and a sweet way to like explore people who might not be easily identifiable as a man or a woman right away. And I'm just so happy that I did that. And it is really mostly by accident, but it's also is my sensibility, so I guess you'd have to have that no matter what. But I just feel really glad that people will discover Pat. Like I kept thinking, if I didn't know about Pat and I was young, would I see this documentary? And I think I would, and I would think that was funny. And that makes me glad.